We are going to be looking at ID notes for mechanical restraint devices. So, with our mechanical restraint devices, we do have a pretty intensive PDF here for us about dog and cat restraints and different ways that we'll utilize slip collars, leads, and other materials when we don't have a standard muzzle available. So, definitely great read, worth looking into. So we'll go ahead and get started with setting up our notes for our IDs. So I'm in my ID notebook. Left-hand side is ID notes, mechanical restraint devices. Right-hand side is that top name, date, and session. Again, I'm getting into that habit for whenever I'm in the clinic, getting a new piece of paper, putting my name and my initials and the date on it. Left-hand side is going to be the name of the device. The right-hand side, we're going to record the use of the device, precautions when we are using the device, and definitely attempt to draw these so we can see and distinguish between the different types of restraint devices that we're going to be using. So I'm going to go ahead and click my link for my Quizlet. The first device we're going to be looking at is a cat bag. So, a cat bag is just that, it is a bag used for a cat. This bag, we do have two in the classroom. So, this is the cat bag all open. It's got some really good industry, some really secure Velcro, which is what's going to close that. You can lay the cat bag on right in front of or right on the outside of that carrier and try to lure the cat in. Once you get the cat in, then you can secure those Velcro pieces. So the use are for fractious or um, cats that have cranium needs, so things right in the head attention. You need access to the limbs. A fractious cat, when we talk about those are cats that become very, very aggressive and are a flight risk. So they may just dart across the other side of the clinic. Um, we don't use fractious cat, like we don't use that lightly, that term. So it's not just a cat that hisses, but it's a cat that is hissing and actively attempting to bite you, clawing at you as well. So that cat bag is going to be a nice restraint to be able to protect the claws when you're not able to. So definite precaution still is that the cat's head is out of the bag, so they can still bite you, and depending on the cat, they could still escape. So this cat bag is fairly large and would be for very large cats. Um, Smaller cats would definitely be able to escape from that, and if it was so large as well, then the cat could even injure themselves when they're inside of it. So something else that we need to be cautious of. So we have a cat bag. Next, we have a catch pole. Catch pole is pole that you catch with, right? So you guys have probably have seen these. You will learn how to use one of these. So it's a pull back and twist action at the same time. That way it secures that noose at the end of it. Catch poles and will always be on hand at your vet clinics. So we use them as a last resort to restrain our animals. We use them as a last resort for that animal restraint for uncooperative animals or even those animals that might be trapped. So if you have a stray dog that fell into a gutter, then you might use a catch pole to get it out. We had a cat once in the classroom that went underneath the lockers, so we couldn't get it, so we used the catch pole to get the cat out from underneath the lockers. So the catch poles will be on hand at your vet clinics in case you do have that fractious cat that has been able to escape or a dog that has become too aggressive that you're not able to get out of the cage with. So, again, they are last resort. Definitely precautions is just tightening that lead too much. And depending on if you're using the pole, they could become more aggressive. They can bite the pole and injure themselves and their teeth. So that is something to be mindful of when using a catch pole. Next, we have our Elizabethan collar, or our e-collar is often what we'll have them be called, or you'll hear of them. This is your cone of shame. Many times, your cone of shame, owners will not have their animals wearing their cone of shame. So we'll send this home with a dog or on the cat, and it'll be on the cat or the dog. And then they come in and they don't have it on anymore, and that can be an issue. So your animal will become accustomed to having the cone on. It may take a little while, but they will become accustomed to that, and it's something that it's better to have it on than off. We also have some soft cones as well. So it just really depends on the clinic that you're in. So they are to prevent irritation of healing or exposed flesh, which oftentimes, if an animal is spayed or neutered, right, they've got sutures or a glue site, so they will lick that, and animals will lick that site. A lot of times, often owners are going to say, "Oh, he's not licking it at all," but or they'll take it off while he's sleeping. But you can't have eyes on your animal 24 hours a day, so it's best to leave the cones on. Adjustment period, definitely, right? We talked about that with the cone. You also want to make sure that it is tight enough that the paw isn't trapped, but not too tight that it's constricting movement in the neck area. So definitely just be mindful of those things when applying. Next, we'll talk about a head gate. A head gate is attached to our squeeze chute. So our head gate is the front portion, not always on a squeeze chute, but in this some cases there are. So the head gate is to stabilize the animal as needed. So we can do that for medical procedures. If we're shearing an animal, we're not going to have it in a squeeze chute because we're going to need to get access to the sides. But we are going to need to stabilize that head. Some precautions is just ensuring that the equipment is working, making sure that you are preventing any lacerations that could happen or abrasions. So if there's the metal for some reason got bent, damaged, or is rusting, that can dig into your animal and cause some issues there. Next, we have a hog snare. So, a hog snare is used for our hogs. This is the noose right at the end. So, that is going to be put around the top portion of the hog's muzzle. And that hook on this particular one would be you'd be able to loop it and then catch it if you needed to. So you're going to loop as far back in that mouth and tighten it in that top jaw is how these are used because that mouth is kind of oddly shaped. Now we have a basket muzzle. So here we've got our muzzle that has a basket or it looks like a basket. So they come in different shapes, different sizes, different materials as well. This one is plastic, but you can get metal muzzles as well. So they prevent biting. The nice thing about a basket muzzle is that it is going to allow your animal to eat and drink while it's in that muzzle because there's going to be a little bit more movement. Your animal is still going to be able to bark in it. So they can still have access to their mouth. Um, Precautions is just making sure that you've got the correct size. If it's too large or loose, it'll fall off. If it's too tiny, then it'll cause restrictions, and then you could get some different abrasions on your muzzle area. Next is a nylon muzzle. So when we think of muzzles, this is going to be the standard, what we generally think about. So now with the nylon muzzle, these are going to prevent your animal from biting, right? So we're going to use these most often in the veterinary practice for our dogs. We can even use them on cats, but we'll go into a different type of muzzle that we'll use on cats. But these are going to be the muzzles that we use on dogs. The bottom part is the long part. So that is going to be on the bottom. The short piece is the top of your muzzle. So if you think about my dog and its muzzle, it has more support. The neck is longer than the nose, right? The top of the nose is going to stop at my eyes. So that's why you have that shortened piece at the top. So it is used to prevent biting during examination or also grooming. So we at the emergency facility, we always muzzle our animals because we don't have relationships with them. And generally they're coming to the emergency room because they're painful or ouchy. So muzzles are definitely they're not bad. They have a negative stigmatism, but they don't hurt the animal at all. Um, Some animals are better when you put the muzzle on. Some animals, of course, are going to try to get the muzzle off. So you just have to be mindful of how secure you have it. And you definitely want to make it nice and tight so they don't get their paw trapped inside of it. So, again, that sizing is very important. Next, we have that cat muzzle. So, cat muzzles, just like dog muzzles, can come in different shapes or different textures. So, we have a plastic muzzle here. So, where cats is actually the muzzle's opposite. So, with the dog, we wanted the short end on the top, but with the cat, we want the long end. So, this part is going to go onto the face, and then this goes between the ears, stick up in here, and then you're going to tie this behind the head of the cat, behind the ears. So that's that cat muzzle. We can also use the cat muzzle on brachycephalic dogs or dogs with those really shortened faces, so that way we don't restrict their breathing. So bulldogs, you'll find, or Old English bulldogs, I should say, and Bostons. We tend not to use the nylon muzzle. We might use a cat muzzle instead for those. So they can be cloth, they can be plastic, they can have a, you might have a tie, you might have the Velcro, kind of all just depends on what your clinic has. And the nice thing with the cat muzzle is it's covering the eyes as well as the mouth. So that way it calms the cat, kind of like the alligators when you block their eyes. It does help calm that because they're not seeing the input from having their eyes open. So they're not able to see you come by. So it is helpful. Again, we need to make sure that the size is correct and that also that you've tightened it securely on your cat, because you are still going to need to move and maintain control of your animal's head depending on what you're doing. And if you have a muzzle, that becomes harder, more difficult. So you need to make sure that that muzzle is secure. Now we have the actual squeeze chute. So the head gate is right here, but then the squeeze chute is that middle piece. So we generally use squeeze chutes for hoofstock animals. Zoos have also adopted and adapted squeeze chutes for different species. So they even have squeeze chutes for giraffes that are that big. So they're used for medical treatments, examinations of the hooves, and other things. So some of the squeeze chutes are designed to where they actually have a drop in the floor. So the animal walks into the chute, it squeezes them, and then the floor can come down underneath it, so that way we can examine their hooves, and we can see what needs to happen with that animal, or if any medications need to be given. Again, we need to make sure that we are keeping this equipment in working order, so that way we're not harming the animal with any rust or any sharp edges or anything of that nature. Then we have a twitch. So a twitch is used with horses. It we're gonna use a twitch in that top lip. So that will help modify that behavior for horses. So you may have seen, if you're a horse person, you may have seen or you might have a twitch in cattle. If you've seen the cartoons with the cattle with the nose rings, right? Well, that's their sweet spot. So there's a pressure in the nose that kind of sedates them a little bit. So the horses, it's the same thing. It's just that increase in endorphins in the mouth area provides behavior modification. You do need to be cautious about those because your horse can act adversely. Also, if it's prolonged application, it's no longer going to be effective, and then you can also then cause some pain, so or some damage. So prolonged hold is not recommended. It's for like a twitch, just a really quick boom correction. So we have humane twitches. So the humane twitch is metal and has a stopping point, so it can only squeeze so much, right, as long as that apparatus allows you to, versus the chain twitch. And the chain twitch is gonna be as constrictive as you can twist it. So there's no real stop to that one. So the humane twitch, again, is going to have a natural stop in it. You can only squeeze so much, versus the chain twitch, which you can compress until possible hurt, laceration of your animal. So just being mindful of what you're using your twitch for, and again, not for prolonged use. And there we have our mechanical restraint devices. We will learn how to use some of these different devices next month, so it'll be exciting.